Okay, so one of the things we looked at, is there any silver lining to all this TNC? There's certainly a lot of clouds, but we thought, maybe there's an opportunity here. And what we were looking at is the labor pool. In Chicago, Uber and Lyft, particularly Uber, has added thousands of SUVs onto the street level. They promote the idea that if you get an SUV, you can do any type of service. You can do the SUV, you can do the sedan, you can do the Uber Plus, the Uber X, whatever. And so people are buying the SUVs, and there are dealers that Uber has worked with that are giving great deals. So we have all these thousands of SUVs out there, and we thought, well, maybe this is a labor pool that we can tap into for part-time drivers. And so we would call it labor on demand. And what they are is 8-passenger rated vehicles. This size allows it to come under the Illinois Commerce Commission, which is our license to operate at the airports, so they meet that requirement. They have insurance because they are plated as livery vehicles, so they have the minimum city and state requirements of insurance. And what we do is we have a magnet sign that we place, that the driver places on the side of the vehicle when they're working for us. So the airport knows that they can access the inner lane and that we're tracking for fees and such. Now, so that we're designing the service, it's 3 stops and 3 to 5 passengers in a 8-passenger SUV, and the public perceives it really as a step up from the van. So the public seems to like this service, and that gives us maybe some possible price flexibility. But they have to come under the DOT requirements because they're coming under our license. So they have to take a physical, they have to take a drug test, they have to have random drug testing, background checks, and the drivers, because they take the vehicles home, we have to have driver logs, and this is what the drivers like least. But we are having people accept it. Now the random drug testing, so we had, when we started out, we had maybe 12, 15 people in the room that are Uber drivers, and we said, okay, we filled out all the form, now you have to go over and take a drug test. 2 went over. So you can see that our screening requirements are a little stricter than what Uber is doing. So then we have the airport requirements. So the airport requires $5 million worth of insurance, and these guys are carrying maybe $300,000 or something. So one of the things Uber has, and the TNCs have changed the insurance model, and we were able to get insurance based on a per-trip basis. So we have $5 million worth of insurance, and we pay 3.25% of the revenue of the individual trip. Now the employee versus independent contractor battle. We have fought the battle. We had separated our operations into downtown, central business district, which were union drivers and employees, and we had our suburban independent contractors. And the Illinois is a tough state. I mean, California is a tough state. But even in the Midwest, Illinois is a pro-labor, very liberal state, and the Illinois Commerce Commission does require us to have strong controls, so that works against the independent contractor. But in our fights with the lawyers, and our lawyers felt we had a very good contract and would hold up as an independent contractor. But I look at these class action suits as like a corporate diagnosis of cancer. You may beat the cancer, but the chemotherapy and the radiation is going to kill you, and that's the legal fees, in deference to our lawyer here. But so what we did was we just, I don't think we won or lost the case. We just sort of put our hands up, surrendered, said to the lawyers on both sides, take all our cash, settle, and go away. So we don't want to get into that battle, and so we decided to structure these drivers as employees and avoid the legal fees. So hopefully we're doing that. But so these are part-time employees. Now the drivers work, they have all their apps. So they're working for Uber, they're working for Lyft, they're working for 1 or 2 local limousine companies. And they're sitting there in the holding areas at the airport or at downtown, whatever. They're sitting, waiting for their phone to bing. And we pay the driver on a per-trip basis, and we track when the beginning of the trip and the end of the trip. So we send out trips and say you can bid on trips for tomorrow because we have a lot of prearranged work, or on that day we have a trip here, we send it off and say who wants the trip. And if they accept the trip and then they click on that I'm leaving to begin the trip, and then they end the trip, and that's the time period that we're paying them for. And we pay them on a per trip basis, and they get about 60% of the revenue. Now that's a lot less percentage than they would get from like Uber, but we have a higher revenue per trip because it's a shared ride, and we're grouping 3 stops, 3 to 5 passengers in there, and we encourage tips, so that the customer would they'd be getting a gratuity, which they wouldn't under Uber. Now, the money that they receive from us, 43% goes towards the wage, and 57% goes towards the reimbursements or the lease of the vehicle, the driver's cost. So at the end of the year, they get a W-2 and a 1099. We also have to meet the, let's see, we have to meet the, meet the Chicago minimum wage, which under our new mayor is running at $10 today, and we're moving up to $13 an hour in the coming years. So, but the way this model works, the driver would easily make that minimum wage. So then on the wage, we're going to be paying the employee-related taxes, Social Security, unemployment, workman's comp, and deducting their share of the Social Security. Then some of the employment challenges are we need to avoid overtime, because since these are 8-passenger vehicles, they're not exempt from the interstate overtime issue. We also in Chicago have to avoid our union. So we have union employees as well, and the union we've talked with and we have a good relationship with, and they're sort of like, let's see how this comes. We've explained that our existing union dinosaurs, that's what we are, our existing union drivers are really dinosaurs. They have not really accepted that very well, but we're saying that we need to change the model and how it works. So benefits to the driver, we're a new source of revenue. They like that because the place is flooded with SUV drivers, and Uber keeps on pumping them out. These guys are looking for dough. I mean, they have the car payments and trips, so we are a new source of revenue, and we have a high level of productivity, so I mean, I think we can keep them somewhat busy. We have the intercurb loading, which they like, and we can generate a higher revenue per trip. And of course, we talked about the tips that they would get. I mean, the real negative to the drivers are the drivers' logs, and I'm sure that random drug testing is going to be more challenging to them. Benefits to the operator, we have a high employee productivity. These guys have high productivity because we're only paying them on the trip, and it gives us a capacity without a lot of carrying costs. So it's a great source, I think, of driver and vehicle supply for our peaks and valleys, and that it is offering a premium service, which I think gives us some price capability. Chicago has not had a cab fare increase in 15 years, and Uber is undercutting the cab rates. So, I mean, we don't know anything about inflationary costs in Chicago regarding transportation, or we know the cost, but we don't know the inflationary revenue. Don't have that. Let's see. Benefits to the airport. Everything that we operate, the airport generates a fee. The TMC drivers that we're working with are the highest quality because we're doing the effective screening, and we're producing a nice quality product on the curb. So we'll see how this works out. It's we initially questioned, are we going to have these drivers wanting to work with us? They do. The customers like the product, and the airport has been very cooperative in helping us make this work. So, you know, this is a change, so we'll see how it goes forward. Thank you.